And thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your coming today. And I think we should probably start with just a quick round of introductions for a couple of reasons. I just want to be nice to just everyone to know at least who's on this call, since you all might not know each other. And also Dr. Amber Benton is with us today too. Amber recently joined NatSci as our Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And this is an opportunity for her to also begin to interact with faculty in the college, as well as become familiar with the RPT process in NatSci. So Amber, I'll turn it over to you for an introduction, and then I'll call on the rest of you.
Hi, so happy to be here and meet all of you. I probably will turn my camera off. I'm just trying to sit back and observe and listen so I can understand. But as far as how I see my role intersecting with faculty is really wanting to help make sure that we're as equitable and inclusive as possible, as well as supporting all of you along your RPT journey while you're here in the college. But if there are ever concerns, just your own concerns, if you ever just want to chat or talk to me about personal professional concerns that might pertain to DEI, you're always welcome to reach out to me. And my goal is to be as accessible as I can be to folks in the college. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Amber. And so I'll just go around my Hollywood squares, and really just your name and what department you're in would, I think, be sufficient for today. So Yu-Ying.
Hi everyone, I'm Yu-Ying Shi. I'm from CMSC and joined with statistics.
Great, thank you. Willie?
Hi, I'm Willie Wong. I'm from mathematics.
Great. Igor?
I'm Igor Pinchuk. I'm also in math.
Okay. Geoffroy?
Hi, I'm Geoffroy Romé. I'm in the Department of Physiology and the Neuroscience program.
Ingo?
Hi, I'm Ingo Brasch from Integrative Biology and EEB.
Polly?
I'm in biochemistry and molecular biology.
Great. Katerina?
Hello, I'm Katrina, and I'm jointly appointed with math and CMSC.
Great. Eva? Sorry, you're muted.
I'm Eva Ferrer. I'm in plant biology.
Great. Mariah?
Hi, I'm Mariah Meek. I'm in integrative biology and EEB.
Okay. Shane?
Hi, everyone. Shane Crandall, Department of Physiology.
Okay. Jason?
Hello, my name is Jason Basil. I'm also in the Department of Physiology.
Rupali?
Hi, this is going to be a hat trick. I'm also from the Department of Physiology.
And Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm from math.
Great. Amy?
Amy Ralston from biochemistry.
Okay. Hari Haran?
Yeah, I am Hari. I don't think you guys can see me because there's an issue with my camera here, but I'm in the Department of Physiology again.
Great. Okay, I think I got everyone, unless Windows moved around on me during this thing. I don't think they did. Okay, well, we'll get going. So as Cindy mentioned, she and I have been doing this workshop for a number of years now, and we kind of had it all down pat until the pandemic, which now has kind of turned all of us upside down in the way we think about things in general. So I kind of redid our standard presentation on the RPT process, and so I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can get going on the topics. But again, I hope that this will be conversational. And so do feel free to put something in the chat or raise your hand. Cindy will be monitoring those, and just interrupt me because I won't be able to see any of that. So let me, there we go. Does everything look kind of normal, Cindy? Should be, this is the first slide. So is that showing up for people?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, good. Okay, so I just want to give you a preview of the topics that we're going to be covering today, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions on almost every one of them. And I kind of struggled with what order to talk about these things, and I couldn't, yeah. So this is the order I came up with, but just so you know that we're going to be talking about all these things, so that if you have any, if something comes up early on about expectations, just know that we will get to that eventually, but that's not to say that you shouldn't, ask any question you want to as we go along. So give you a chance to scan that. Okay, so I wanted to start with the sort of the basics of the RPT process as it plays out in NatSci. And one of the first things I know that Cindy has always emphasized when she did these workshops is start by becoming informed. And you need to be talking now with your chair and mentors about how things work in your department. Let me move you all sort of down here. Okay. Because different departments have different processes in terms of how they make RPT recommendations and decisions. They have different deadlines. They may ask for a slightly different set of materials. And so you want to really understand how things work in your department and what deadlines you have to meet for your departmental process. Also, if you are jointly appointed, and I know we have several people on the call who are, you want to talk with both of your chairs, regardless of which ones, where your majority appointment is, because both chairs and both departments will be taking a look at your dossier and your packet. And but those two departments and chairs, they may have different deadlines. And so you just want to make sure that you're, going to be complying with whatever rules and regs and deadlines there are within both departments. And it would be a good idea if you can arrange it to have this conversation with the chairs with all three of you in the same room at the same time, so that everybody hears the same thing and is on the same page for what the plan is for you with joint appointments. And then this link here will take you to the NatSci Reappointment, Promotion, and Tenure Guidelines. It's a kind of a lengthy document, but it's you can take a look at that and become familiar with kind of the policies and expectations that are coming out of the college. And so once you've talked with your chair or chairs and have become informed on what your own deadlines and expectations are, make yourself a plan. Include a timetable of discrete goals and target dates, so that you are staying on track and on target for getting your materials in. And also, I just wanted to mention to Cindy, feel free to interrupt me and chime in if you have additional things to add.
Will do. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the academic year calendar, the departmental level review is conducted in fall semester. And even though the formal review, however it's done in your department, happens in fall semester, it is often the case that the actual process or your work will begin in the summer, because, for example, some units begin to invite external letter writers in the summertime. And so, and there may be other, departmental deadlines for submission of materials that might occur in September. And so you may need to be doing things yet this summer. So make sure that that's another reason why it's really important to know your departmental deadlines. The RPT material, so the famous Form D and all the other ancillary materials that you need to submit, those are due in the dean's office on either September 15th, if it's a reappointment packet, or January 15th, if it's a promotion and tenure or promotion to full packet. And then the college and provost review happens in spring semester of the academic year. Process is continued on the next slide, but let me just stop there, see if Cindy or any of you have questions at this point. I'll do that after each slide just to make sure.
Yeah, I think we're good, Cheryl.
Okay. Okay, so a little bit more about the college review process. Now, this is done, the college review is conducted in the months of January and February, and I just wanted to explain to you all how the review works at the college level. So we have an 11-member RPT committee, and that's 11 because we have 11 tenure granting units, departments, and there's one representative from each department on the committee. Now, your department rep is considered a conflict of interest, and so that person would not be present during the discussion of your case, in part because you know, the RP, it's sort of like with study section, you know, if you're at the same institution, you're just not present during the discussion. But I do encourage you, though, to, if you know the RPT representative from your department, you should feel free to talk with them about how this process goes, because they can be an invaluable source of information on the process, and also help you in putting together your Form D, because they will know firsthand, you know, what can be confusing or what can be really helpful to the RPT committee as they're evaluating Form Ds. We do have a study section model of review of Form Ds and dossiers. And what that means is that of the 11 people on the committee, each packet or each candidate is assigned a primary, secondary, well, actually, there are 3 primary reviewers on the RPT committee assigned to each packet. And their job is to do a very deep dive into the dossier. All of the committee members read all of the dossiers, but the 3 primary reviewers are the ones that will, the first one called on will summarize the case and talk about strengths and weaknesses and make their recommendation. And then we move on to the second primary reviewer, and then the third, and then it gets opened up for full discussion by the full committee. And then ultimately the committee votes. We actually are required to report the RPT committee vote on the Form D when it's sent to the provost. And so that's how that's done. Now then the dean, okay, so let me just back up and say a couple more things. Both Dean Duxbury and I are at these RPT committee meetings. I'm there basically chairing the meeting. I'm not a voting member of the committee or anything like that. I kind of function, if you're familiar with NIH study sections, as the scientific review officer who's keeping track of time and making sure that you know, rules are followed and that kind of thing. And then Phil is there and he's taking his own notes on the discussion. And so based on the discussion that by the committee, and then his own review of the packets, the dean then writes his recommendation, and that is informed by the RPT committee discussion and vote. But it may or may not be, his recommendation may or may not be the same as the department's or the committee's recommendations, because the dean is, at MSU, the dean is charged with making an independent recommendation to the provost. And again, the dean's recommendation is informed by all these other levels of review, but in the end, it's their recommendation. And then the dean's recommendations, which are, you know, part Form D, are due to academic HR, or the Provost's office, by February 28th of each year. I do see Willie. You happen to be on my screen. Go ahead.
Yeah. Quick question. So the committee is only the votes reported to the provost, or is the committee submitting a separate recommendation from the dean?
No, the committee in our college, different colleges do this differently, but in NatSci, the RPT committee does not write. We don't ask them to write anything up. And so it's only the vote that is forwarded. Often in Phil's letter, though, let's say, not letter, his recommendation, which he typically does write in the form of a letter. Excuse me. If the RPT committee vote was split, he will typically explain what the different, perspectives were. And then, say, and for this reason, this is my recommendation. So, but yeah, he usually does. If the RPT committee vote is unanimous, there's typically no reason for him to, explain the discussion necessarily. Okay. So now your packet has made it to the provost by February 28th, and then what happens? Well, that's not often clear to faculty or even chairs necessarily. So I thought I'd share with you what I know about that process. It has been a little bit of a mystery over the years, but the way it's working now, and remind you, we've had 3 different provosts in the past 2 years, I guess. And so, and each provost has their own way of doing things. And of course, our provost, this past spring was Teresa Woodruff's first time at MSU going through this process. And so here's what I know based on N of 1 with Provost Woodruff. So the dossiers or Form Ds or packets are reviewed by the Associate Provost for Academic HR, who is currently Suzanne Lang. And there is an ad hoc committee of university distinguished professors or faculty with other honorifics, like there may be a Hannah Chair or an MSU Foundation Chair or something like that, that also is asked to review the packets. And I think the way they do that is, I'm not sure how many people are on this ad hoc committee, but not all of those members look at all of the packets. Remember, this is now at the university level, so there's maybe 100 or more of these packets in each year. So somehow they divide that up, and so Suzanne is assisted, or this other ad hoc committee also looks at packets, and I think they do write up something, but whatever. So that's what happens in the provost's office. Then this year, Suzanne Lang, along with one of the members of this ad hoc community of distinguished professors, meets with Phil and me, and they discuss each case. Actually, let me correct that. The way it worked this year was Phil and I had 2 meetings with Suzanne Lang. One of them was for reappointments, and the second one was for promotion and tenure cases. And the distinguished professor representative was only at the promotion and tenure discussion, not the reappointment discussion. But in any case, Phil and I, Suzanne Lang asked Phil and I about each and every case, whether even if it was unanimous at every single level for reappointment or promotion and tenure. And she had read every one. She was familiar with all of these cases. And so then as we went through each case, Suzanne would say, okay, I approve. And then meaning that she's at least this year was granted quite a bit of, I don't know, authority by the provost to approve or not. But then when there were cases where maybe it was not unanimous or not slam dunk, then Suzanne told us that she then would discuss those kind of cases with the provost, who then would make the final recommendation for promotion and tenure. And then once the provost makes her recommendations, then the final step for at least tenure and promotion cases, the rests with the Board of Trustees in their June meeting. The board approval is typically pro forma. I mean, I don't know of any instance where the Board of Trustees did not go with the recommendation of the provost. And then, just so you know, and I don't know that the college has been very good or consistent about this over the years, but faculty must be informed of the recommendation at each stage of the review. It's not that you would get the written recommendation, but you would at least be told that, well, hopefully you are informed of what the department recommendation is soon after that's done. And then after the dean's level review, what should happen, and I think it did happen this year, is once we've sent the packets to the provost's office, then the dean would tell chairs, okay, here's the recommendation that went out from the college. And of course, there's always the caveat that the provost can, you know, it's going to ultimately, it's their recommendation, but here's what the college recommended. And then finally, when we hear from the provost, then again, we inform the chairs, who then should inform the faculty. Okay, I think this is, yeah. All right, any questions about process? We're hoping to take some of hoping to try to demystify some of this, and I don't know if I was successful in doing that or not, but just any questions? Okay. So
and I just want to say for the ones that, sorry, Cheryl, they're listening in, I can't see the whole list of folks that are here and raising their hands. So you may just have to turn on your mic and jump in. So don't hesitate. And it's great, Cheryl. Thank you for offering a Q&A at the end of each slide. I think that's brilliant.
Okay, now we have the famous COVID-19 tenure clock extension, which was granted to every faculty member in the tenure system last year, right around this time last year. And that was, yeah, granted to everyone except for those faculty who started their appointment in fall of 2020 or later. Couple things that you may already be well aware of, but the COVID extension is in addition to, on top of, any other previously approved extensions. And so what that means is, so you have a probationary period, whether it's your first 4-year, before reappointment or in between reappointment and promotion and tenure. And so there's what's called a mandatory review date for those periods, which is typically starts 2 years before the probationary end date. And the rationale there is that it takes a year for this process, this review process, to play out. If a case was unsuccessful, then they have 1 year remaining in their probationary period to figure out what they're going to do. And so when the COVID-19 tenure clock extension was granted, what that did is automatically push everybody's mandatory review date is it back a year or ahead a year? Anyway, 1 year later than it was before. And so if you already had an extension due to whatever reason, birth or adoption of a child or any other extension, and your mandatory review date had already been pushed back a year, well, the COVID one pushed it back another year. And so but anybody who wants to be reviewed at the pre-COVID time, that means in plain English, you don't actually want to use the extension. All you need to do is inform your chair, and then the chair informs the college, and then there's a standard letter that everybody signs, just documenting that you don't want to use the extension and you want to come up for review this year, and that's cool. The main thing to know about that, though, is that if someone is coming up for reappointment and they don't want to use the COVID extension, then they are bound by the outcome of the review. That is, if the reappointment case was unsuccessful, well, okay, that's it. With promotion and tenure cases, though, if you want to come up your pre-COVID time and it's that the review is unsuccessful, then that person can be reviewed again the next year. So I don't know if that's clear. I mean, that's always been the way it was for any other kind of extension. I think it was explained to me by Terry Curry that the reason for that is that they really don't want to encourage people to come up for reappointment early, because that would mean you'd be coming up for reappointment, and after having been at MSU only 1 year, and that's simply not enough time, and not enough data can be gathered on trajectory in just 1 year. So that was the rationale for that. And then this link here takes you, and we can go there if there are questions, to the, there's a set of frequently asked questions about the COVID extension that I find helpful anyway when I get questions. So Katerina?
Sorry, I just had a quick question. So if you choose not to use the COVID extension at your reappointment, can you still use it when you're getting promoted for tenure?
Yes.
I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Ingo?
So if I have multiple extensions, one with COVID, one other one, do I then have the chance to be, if unsuccessful, come up twice again?
We have asked that question, and Cindy, I don't think we ever heard back. It seems to me that by the, I mean, as I read it, yeah, because you still have that probationary end date, which is way out there. And I don't see how that would change if you decided to not use the extension. But it's at the risk of, giving you misinformation, let me make a note to re-ask that question. And Cindy, I'm not making that up, right? Didn't we ask that?
I actually don't remember whether we asked that specific question, but Ingo, let me make sure that I understand. So with the various extensions, if you came up on your original clock, basically 2 years early, you're asking whether you have 2 shots at tenure.
Right. So I have an extension already, and now the COVID extension, and I'm currently contemplating that I should go back to my original clock.
Right.
So
right. And so
this time.
Right.
And then I had generally one other shot, but if it's then again, I mean, I'm not trying to
right.
make use of it, but
right. So we do need, absolutely, we do need clarity in terms of what academic HR, what the, the final answer is in regard to, I agree with Cheryl that, you know, with, let's just say it's extension because of parental leave, and then you come up on your original clock, you have a second shot, you know, under those rules, right? So that's the thinking that Cheryl has, and I agree with her. But we do need to get a final say from academic HR. Meanwhile, this is an opportunity to point out to all of you, keep in mind that when you go through tenure, you're having letters written, okay? And you're being completely evaluated. And it doesn't work out, but you have a second shot. Okay, so how much has going through that process once before and not been successful will, in a sense, almost taint the process the second time round? Okay, so I'm not arguing that you shouldn't take advantage of this benefit, right? And there can be absolutely legitimate reasons to do it. And in fact, the feedback that one gets in going through the process could actually help you to put together a much stronger case the second time round. Meanwhile, you know, you've asked people to write letters already. There'll have to be an explanation to those letter writers if they're used again in the second try. So it's just that if you want to go up on the originally scheduled clock, be very mindful about really your chances of success. And I would encourage all of you to have a really good heart-to-heart with your chair. Trust what they have to say, because oftentimes the chair has a great deal of insight about how the department will see your case, right? And that's kind of where things start. And the department will inform the college will inform the provost, right? And so it's really critical what your colleagues in your unit, how they view your progress. And so if a chair is discouraging you from going up for tenure or going up on your original, according to your original clock, you know, you might pause and consider your chair's advice, right? So I guess I'm encouraging you to really have an open conversation with your chair if you decide that you want to go on your original clock. And you know, if there's some hesitation, really understand what it is the chair is concerned about. Now, related to that is this issue of, and I know that at least some of you in the room right now are being affected by this. There's a compression that's happening if you've delayed your reappointment 1 to, you know, even potentially 3 years because you've had a couple of children join your household and then there's COVID. But meanwhile, you've been highly productive and you want to come up for tenure, right? You can face a scenario where you are up for tenure 1 year and now you feel like you can be up for, or sorry, you're up for reappointment 1 year and your original clock says you would be up for tenure the following year and you really feel like you're ready, right? And I think we need some clarity from the college in regard to how that's going to be viewed in light of trying to evaluate trajectory of progress. You know, my position is that delaying your clock is there to serve you. It's not there to punish you, right? And we have always encouraged folks to take that tenure extension if they're having kids. You know, there's also other reasons, but particularly, you know, with the parental related to having a new child come into your household, It's an automatic approval as long as you asked for it, right? And so we have encouraged everybody to take it as a safety net. And so I don't know if that's clear, Ingo. I've kind of gone far afield, but does it help some?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
And I promise we will get clarity on this question of 2 tries, but I'm issuing a message of be very mindful and cautious about that.
Yeah, thanks.
I see Joe.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, is it being considered to give people who started in fall 2020 the COVID extension? I've heard various rumors about this. And I don't...
Yeah, so they weren't granted an automatic one because they hadn't even started yet. But there's if you go to that these FAQs here, there is that question is basically posed, and you can even if you started in fall of 2020, you can always request an extension that is COVID related. The only difference is that it would need to go through the typical approval process, meaning the department, the dean, and the University Committee on Faculty Tenure approves those requests. My guess is that even though it's not automatic, I can't imagine not approving a COVID-related extension when asked for. So the only difference is you have to ask for it, and it's not automatic, but it goes through the normal approval process. But yeah, you can ask.
When would I need to ask for it?
You actually, if I don't know if this will work or not. I think it is. You have to ask for it no later than your unit's due date for materials at your mandatory review. Actually, let me, okay.
So not now, essentially.
Yeah. I'm going to this, let's see, okay. What if I would like to be promoted, I'm scheduled, what is, okay, I think this is the question. I don't know if you can read. My department has hired a new assistant professor starting in August 2020. Do they automatically get the extension? No, the automatic extension only applies to faculty in tenure system. At this time, there are no plans to provide an automatic extension. However, if situations, that's just saying what I said. Yeah, I thought maybe this had a due date in it. I guess what I was thinking of, let's see. Sorry, I'm don't want to take somewhere in here. If you go to this website, somewhere in here, there is mention of if you, well, no, that's different. If you, sorry, the date I was thinking of was somebody who wishes to not use the extension. So yeah, I guess I would go ahead and just apply for the extension now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not something I can leave until the end of next year and decide then?
Right, because you don't, it's the ones that have the automatic one are the ones that can wait until the last minute to decide whether they want to use it. If you want to have an extension then, and you feel like you have enough, you can have enough information or data to share with that would justify an extension, then yeah, I would go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What information is needed to justify it?
Would talk about just the like, well, you know, this wouldn't necessarily apply to you, but you know, if your lab renovations couldn't be done, or you couldn't, yeah, your work was somehow impaired, you couldn't hire a postdoc, or couldn't get a graduate student, or whatever it was about the pandemic that made you not be able to, you know, get the work done that you wanted to get done, whatever that is. And again, I don't think the bar here is going to be that high. I mean, people understand that, you know.
Cheryl, quick question.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on Joe's question, was he asking, or Joe, were you asking about the COVID tenure clock extension?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was automatic, that you don't need to ask or justify. Am I misunderstanding?
It's for people who started this year.
Oh, okay, sorry, got it.
Okay, any other questions about the COVID extension?
Hi, Cheryl, just a quick formal question on the third bullet point. When do we need to inform our chair about going up for based on pre-COVID time?
Yeah, the technical answer is no later than the due date of your materials in the department. So like theoretically, you could go to Keith on, I don't know, you know, November 15th and say, hey, I want to, you know, I want to be reviewed this year, but that's, yeah, tell them right away. Or once you decide that you don't want to, you know, use the extension.
So I guess my follow-up is there is no sort of, because I already informed him, just wondering whether I need to push him to tell the college in any way beyond just me informing him that I'll be going.
Oh, the reason that he would tell the college is, again, we have this letter that the faculty member and the department chair, and I guess I'm the signatory for the college, signs, just so that it's on paper somewhere that you are coming up for review this year, and your probationary end date will remain what it was, and if you're unsuccessful, then you can come up. It just puts all that in writing. And another reason too, it's helpful for the college to know is that every year, sometime in, I think, the fall, the college gets a list from academic HR of people whose mandatory review date is this year, say. And if you've got an extension, then you wouldn't be on that list because your mandatory review date is not this year. And so, but then meanwhile, it's helpful for us in the college to know, oh, okay, we think we have these many people being reviewed, but actually there are more because there are, you know, a handful of people who are not taking the extension. It just helps us for planning purposes. So. Any other questions on the extension? Okay. This is just a little bit of follow-up to Cindy's point about coming up early. And I just wanted to give you kind of the college level perspective on this. It's not really making the same point that Cindy did, but we get this question a lot. If you decide not to use the COVID extension or any other extension that you have, we don't consider that coming up early per se. It just means you didn't use the extension. So that's kind of what Cindy was getting at. It's like you didn't have any choice about the COVID extension, you got it. And we encourage people to use the parental extension just as a sort of insurance plan if things, you know, if you do need it. But that doesn't mean that if you don't need to use the extensions or don't want to use the extension, that doesn't mean you're coming up early. You're coming up when you thought you were going to be coming up all along. So we don't even like to think about it in terms of early. And the other misconception that we sometimes hear is that, well, if you want to be considered for, let's say, promotion and tenure before your mandatory review date, the bar must somehow be higher. So I have to be even more productive than I would have been had I not come up. No, the bar is the same. It's just you have met the bar or expectations before your actual mandatory review date. That's just it. And this is sort of getting at more at Cindy's point, the primary considerations for you to think about if for coming up for review before your mandatory review date are, number one, whether you're ready, you feel, you and your department chair feel like you have met expectations for promotion and tenure, and again, a high probability that strong external letters can be obtained. Those are the main questions to be asking. Any other I don't know, myths or mysteries about this that anybody wants to be confirmed or dispelled? Okay. Okay, external letters. Always get a lot of questions about this. So right now, NatSci policy requires 6 evaluative letters from external referees. Now, MSU's policy is 4 to 6. And actually, a couple of years ago, NatSci was requiring 8, and then it was like, why are we requiring 8? Anyway, so we changed it to 6, mainly because it's as some of you may know, to get 8 letters or even to get 6 letters, you have to put maybe 10 or 12 requests out there. And because people are busy and the requests often come in the summertime, and whatever reason, these having nothing to do with the candidate per se, external invitations to provide an external letter are declined. And this year it could be even worse because the external letter writers have been going through the pandemic along with the rest of us. And so I am going to be making the recommendation to Phil that we can shoot for 6 evaluative letters, but that if only 4 come in, we're going to say that's good enough because it does meet university requirements. I just think we just need to, understand that the pandemic is affecting everyone, and including in this way. But I say stay tuned because I haven't actually gotten his okay on that. But that's going to be my recommendation. And then the next couple of bullets are sort of standard policy. So candidates can submit up to 3 to 5 names of external reviewers, and the department needs to obtain a minimum of 2 from that list. But just make the point that when you're coming up with your list of names, it is not appropriate for you to contact them directly and say, hey, would you be willing to write a letter of recommendation? No, you should not communicate with them at all. Those names should be communicated just to the chair, and then the chair will, end up deciding who's, gonna get the invitation. And then at least 4 evaluators, and this is under the 6 requirement rule. So whatever, at least 4 evaluators must be from the department's list. So it's fair for you to talk with your chair to strategize a little bit on who should be on your list versus the department's list, because what you don't want to do is put 5 of the top people that you would want a letter writer from on your list, because you can only get so many from that list. The majority of the letters need to be from the department's list. So I know that's kind of a little loosey-goosey in terms of, figuring that out, but that's the recommendation. And then I also wanted to point out that we also allow for up to 2 what we're calling explanatory letters. Now, these are not evaluative letters. These explanatory letters would come from colleagues or maybe collaborators who can attest to the significance and the impact of your contribution to the collaboration. What you'd want to see in a letter like that is, well, basically we couldn't do this project without Amy's expertise in such and such an area, or you know, this kind of thing. So those explanatory letters don't ask for a recommendation on promotion and tenure, because there's a clear conflict there in the first place, but that is allowable from that side. Any questions on those?
Yes, for the explanatory letters, is that a list that we provide of people who would potentially be good for that, or is that the committee decides?
You can. I mean, I think the chair would be the requester, but you know, it's up to you. Like, you know your collaborators, and you know which ones are most appropriate for talking about that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea whether you will find out about this potential change to the number of letters? One of the reasons that the math department actually has written into the bylaws that we should require something consistent with the college, but not fewer than 6.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure what to tell you, Willie. It's a conversation I need to have with Phil. It may be that he'll want to stick with, well, you can't say require and then say, but we'll be happy with 4. I don't know. We're going to be having a I don't know, a workshop or something with chairs in June. And so I'll know an answer to your question by then. I'll talk this over with Phil and see. Yeah.
So just to put a bug in your ear while you're having that discussion also is, what happens if you have a secondary appointment in math, and what sorts of rules are going to be related to that? Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, those bylaws, they trip us up every time, don't they? Sorry, I'm just making myself a note here. Fortunately, the 6 letters is not in the Nat Sci bylaws. It's just in our policy document. We can change our policy document, I think, just by changing a policy document. So, okay, stay tuned for that. Okay, here's something I really also wanted to get your feedback on. So we need to provide some guidelines and instructions to external letter writers about the pandemic and what they should, you know, how to, because MSU has granted, you know, the tenure clock extension related to COVID and so forth. So we're still working on this. There's an ad hoc committee, Cindy is on it, that is been thinking about this. So what should the recommended language to letter writers be in 2021? And some of the things they've come up with or come out of that discussion is that we would ask external letter writers to not do peer comparisons. I know this is commonplace in some disciplines that, you know, the letter writers will say, okay, pick 5 peers in this same area and let us know how the MSU faculty member is doing relative to those folks. Well, I don't know. It seems to me in the year of a pandemic, that's just really not fair. and maybe even not in a pandemic, it's not. It's either not fair or just why ask that question? So no peer comparisons. We don't want them to speculate about whether or not if the MSU faculty member would be awarded tenure at their institution. Why would we care about that either? I don't know. Now I'm speaking my opinion. we would like for them to provide some context or explanation on how the pandemic has affected their particular discipline, because we know that that is the impact has been different across disciplines. And so just sort of affirmation of that from external letter writers might be, would be useful. And then this long bullet here, I'll just let you read it. That is taken from the COVID-19 extension FAQs. So they provided some language. It's basically, I guess the message there is, so let's say somebody did take the extension, and so they've been in rank or in whatever for a year longer than maybe they normally would have. You don't hold that against them, and we're not, they should not be thinking about years in rank so much as have they met expectations. And so then I wanted to ask your opinions on what else would you, as the person who's being written about, any other suggestions for things to guidance or instructions to letter writers that you don't see here? Amy?
Can this be extended to people going for promotion to full?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. So in those letters that are going out for full, you wouldn't be talking about a tenure clock so much, but yeah.
Yeah, I assume that this slide was meant to address anybody going up for any kind of promotion at MSU, but it just says tenure. So I just wanted to double check. I'm not trying to be pedantic. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Again, this letter or this template letter to external reviewers will be drafted and talked about, or get Phil's feedback. And then by the time we have that June workshop with chairs and directors, they'll be provided this.
I do have one more minor idea. So I like the idea that you put forth about asking the letter writer to comment on how the pandemic has impacted our field, our shared field. And it might be helpful prompt to get those letter writers' juices going, to think about how has this affected our field, to remind people in certain disciplines that while we were banished from our laboratories for an extended period of time, we still continued to pay for our animals, and those of us who do animal research. And so that's just one example. I'm sure that we can come up with a more generalizable type of reminder for these people. But I think that that's an important consideration, because that's money is productivity. They're tied together, and that's money that's not coming back. It's not extended. It's not going to be supplemented as far as we know. So maybe that could be helpful to throw that in.
Yeah. And people were paying for personnel who weren't doing anything because they couldn't do anything. Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to count to 5 for leaving this slide. Okay, the dreaded Form D. And I think Cindy may have some additional advice to offer here too. One approach to Form D, even though it's dreaded and everyone hates it and it's redundant and you can't figure out where's supposed to go what or what's supposed to go where, just remember that this is your opportunity to explain yourself, to make your own case. It's it's sort of like writing a grant proposal. Yeah, there's a form and a template and you've got page limits and this stuff like this, but you're ultimately talking to real people. And so you can put in there anything you want them to know. And you should put in there anything you want them to know. And if you can't figure out where it goes, well, just put it in your reflective essay, or put it in, in your list of publications. I mean, I've seen that where you have your list of publications and then people write a little narrative after that, talking about how, this set of pubs was with my graduate, whatever you want to. Again, I think the bottom line, tell people what you want them to know about you and your professional accomplishments. So do provide context and personalize it, and yeah. So, and then some other kind of tips. In the section on teaching, you want to make sure somewhere you explain your role in courses that are team taught, because sometimes it's confusing to the RPT committee. Like everybody fills out that form and where the number of sections or number of lectures, and nobody really, that form is hard to figure out what's being asked for there anyway. But if you are in a course that's team taught, just say, I gave half the lectures or something like that. Or not only did I give half the lectures, but I was the instructor of record, so I had to do all the administrative stuff, whatever it was. It's important that you provide evidence of your seeking opportunities to develop your teaching skills, including whatever you did to pivot to online instruction in 2020, or even before the pandemic, if you attended STEM Essentials teaching workshops, anything like that, because the college really likes to see evidence of that. There's also a lot of confusion about the teaching portfolio. Yes, everyone should be keeping a teaching portfolio, but that does not need to be sent to the college, it's to be retained by the department, and it should be on hand in case anybody ever wanted to look at it. But what is submitted with Form D is the unit's evaluation of the portfolio. So there's a form for that. Your chairs should know about it. It doesn't necessarily have to be them that evaluates the teaching portfolio, but someone in the unit in your department should evaluate it. And then there should also be peer observation evaluations. And so those are the materials about teaching that need to be sent to the college, not the portfolio itself, because those are often, hundreds of pages of syllabi, and the RPT committee has enough to read without reading everyone's course syllabi. As far as research goes, we really encourage everyone to annotate your publications. So have some sort of annotation system where you indicate which publications may have been with your postdoc advisor or some other prior mentor, or versus those with your own trainees, or versus those with collaborators. And there would be a good place also to talk about your contribution to that paper. If, let's say, there's more than one kind of PI or senior investigator on the paper. It's helpful to have separate lists for refereed versus unrefereed publications. So sometimes we'll see lists that include conference proceedings, which I know in some disciplines are peer reviewed. So you might, that's the other thing, you want to, particularly those of you with joint appointments or in disciplines where the norms for publication or the order of authorship is different from, say, my field. Just a little short introductory preamble to your list of publications explaining that these are the disciplinary norms, and here's why I'm always in the middle of the authorship list, because my name starts with M. There's some disciplines that have alphabetical listing, so it's just helpful for the committee to know those things. Oops. And yeah, the goal of all this is that you want to be able to demonstrate your own scientific leadership in your body of scholarly work.
So I just want to add at this point that annotate publications with prior mentors, trainees. And maybe that's what you mean by the first point, that one of the things that's really helpful to understand what your role is in the publication is when you're listing your publications to have just 2 lines, which makes it clear what your role was in that paper, in that publication, particularly if it's the situation where you play a key role, the project wouldn't happen without you, right? And so that would be the sort of point you want to get across, but you're neither the first author or the last author, right? And particularly if you've helped develop ideas around what the scientific question is, you know, how shaping that sort of your intellectual contribution, right? Because what the college is looking for is your development as a scholar, right? And so, and maybe that's what Cheryl, that's exactly what you mean by annotate your publications. And I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are instructions in Form D, if you read the fine print, that you're supposed to asterisk or give some indication if a publication was with a former advisor. But it's silent on whether you should annotate, I think it's silent, papers with graduate students or certainly not collaborators. So I've just seen people go a little bit further with that annotation. So asterisk is former mentor, whatever, ampersand or whatever, dagger, some other indicator is for a graduate student or postdoc in my lab publication, that kind of thing. Because really the committee, they're sitting there with this long list of publications and the order of authorship is everywhere and here and there. And they're just trying to understand, you know, who is this paper with and where they, you know, and so it's just helpful. Again, remember, it's real people who are reading these 100-page dossiers at 10:30 at night, and this is the 3rd one they've done today, and you just want to make it as easy on them as you can. Sorry, Cindy, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah, making it transparent, right? And so what comes to mind, right, is, you know, how with NIH grants, Cheryl and I have gotten our money from NIH, you know, they ask for your role, right, in your bio sketches. And what do? You write role, you bold it, colon, and then you provide your role, right? And so to stick those 2 lines or 3 lines underneath each publication is providing some sort of narrative, right, in terms of your role, right? And so if you're the senior author and you're supervising the postdoc who's the first author, right? Things like that is easily grabbed and processed by the reviewers, right? So it's like you're taking their hand and leading them along and helping them to assimilate the important information that you want them to assimilate.
Okay, just some a couple of tips on the reflective essays. So for the teaching one, you want to describe your teaching philosophy or approach. Mentioned this already. Anything that you can incorporate in there anything you can put in there of your incorporation of evidence-based pedagogical approaches to enhancing student learning. You may have gone to a flipped classroom or whatever it is you've done in that realm is good to put in there. Definitely efforts to create an inclusive classroom environment. And yeah, efforts to develop your own teaching skills. For research, my advice is to tell a story. I mean, we like stories, and so I'm really, that essay, you know, it should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a story arc to it to the best you can. Now, I realize that for maybe all of us, you're walking this fine line because this research, a reflective essay, typically goes to the external letter writers as well. And so you've got really two audiences here. One of them are the experts in your field who you want to, you know, talk shop with in this story that you're telling. But on the other hand, there's also the NatSci RPT committee who are by and large non-specialists in your field. And maybe Cindy has some advice on this, but one model to think about, or one way to approach this is like you do with research seminars, where it's the hourglass model, where your first paragraph or your first couple of slides provide context and why, why you're excited about this work that you're doing, how can you get others excited about it? And then you go into the, okay, here's the nitty gritty details that maybe you're not going to follow all of them, but here it is for those who can. And then again, widen it back out at the end about, impact and so forth. So that would be my advice on that one. So Cindy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good strategy. Presumably all of you have gotten a grant at this point, and so you've been learning and practicing these skills in getting your grants, right? And so your grants are likely, your applications are likely to be assigned by somebody that's not right in your field. The other thing is, and Cheryl, you can address this, is, pictures tell 1,000 words, right? So are people starting to use graphics in their stories?
Yeah.
So,
I see that a lot.
yeah, the visual presentations, now you can't, make them too complex, right? Again, but those graphics can really help too. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, and it breaks up the monotony of, and creates a little bit of white space on a single page, and everybody knows that that's helpful. So for sure.
But I think it is about what I'm excited about. What is the promise or potential, right? So what are the sorts of things that reviewers are looking for when they decide to fund your grant, right? It's new ideas, innovation, impact, and significance, right? Impact and significance. I can't really tell the difference between those, but anyways, and so you really want to try to capture those in your research statement, and you don't have to have it laden with all sorts of technical words, right? And the most artful scientific writer is one that can write a piece that makes it very clear that this is important work and it's also accessible.
Yeah. Well said. So I see that it's 4:18. I can't remember how many more slides we have, but yeah, so maybe I'll try to pick up the pace. I don't think there's that much more, but yeah. Yeah, let me just, I think this is from last year. Cindy and I put together a couple new slides, what makes the RPT committee happy versus what makes the RPT committee cranky. So these are a lot of what we've already been talking about. So I'll just give a second for y'all to read those quickly. Okay, and also we'll make this PowerPoint available so you can go back and take a look at this again too. So these are the happy things. Sorry, go ahead, William.
Quick question. For going up for tenure, the reporting period is the time since reappointment or since employment?
Yeah, that thanks for that question, because this is kind of a source of confusion. Yes, the reporting period is since the last recommendation. But of course, coming up for promotion and tenure, it's on the whole MSU experience. So yeah, yeah, but that is, yeah, the reporting period refers to just time since reappointment. And then things that make the committee cranky. Yeah, I'll let you read those. Yeah, we've talked about all these. Okay, COVID-19 impact statement. Well, so we've been talking about these most recently in the context of annual reviews, but there's also the option for people to craft an impact statement for their RPT packet. And we were supposed to have gotten some guidance from upstairs on what that might look like, and we really didn't get any. So this is just going to be my recommendation. And first of all, it's entirely optional. You don't have to mention the pandemic. You know, if I did a word search of your Form D and pandemic didn't show up, that would be fine. But if you do want to convey in your Form D materials how the pandemic has impacted your ability to do your work, there are a couple of ways you could go. You could actually provide a separate impact statement, or it could be woven throughout your Form D or reflective essays, just anywhere where it seems appropriate, point it out. Again, going back to the notion, tell people what you want them to know. And so, for example, Amy, somewhere in there, you might say, you know, I was paying for animals and a lab tech, and you know, and so we didn't get the paper out, and that until, you know, whatever. But basically a focus on how the pandemic affected your ability to get your work done. And you might also take this opportunity to not turn it into a positive. I'm not sure there's anything positive, but convey, for example, you know, Amy, I think I might have heard this from you, and I've used it in other example in other groups, because it really struck home with me. And that is, some people may have aspired to bundling up 5 experiments into a single paper and sending it to PNAS or Nature Communications or someplace like that. And then the pandemic hit, and there was, you know, one more experiment that still needed to be done before that strategy could be taken. So what do? Well, you say, all right, I'm gonna have 2 papers instead of, or 3 with these experiments that are already been done, because now I can't go to the PNAS because I haven't been able to do that 5th experiment yet, but also I've got a graduate student who needs to get out of here. And so Amy, was that you that was, yeah. And I thought, you know, that is a great thing to say in a Form D or an impact statement, because you know, that first of all, it shows not compassion. Well, yeah, it does show compassion, but care for your trainees' progression through their career. So it was in their best interest that you take this strategy, even though that might mean that the paper may not have the impact it would have because it wasn't in the journal that you had planned on. So things like that, and other ways of showing that you helped others. You know, you spent a lot of time with your trainees, just trying to keep morale up and whatever it was you had to do. So those are the kinds of things that you could put in an impact statement that I think, again, personalize it and explain what it was like, what you did. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's all I got on the impact statement front. Okay, so now that it's 4:24, okay, I can skip through these next couple. On this slide and the next one are the sort of pre-pandemic expectations for reappointment, tenure and promotion to associate professor, and then the next slide is, professor to promotion to full. So this is taken from the NatSci RPT guidelines, so you can go and look them up. And so the real question that everybody has been asking and wondering about and so forth is, well, now that we're, in year 2 of pandemic, what are the expectations now? And so this also is a little hard to say at this point. So what I'm telling you is what we're trying to do in the college, and we're not quite there yet. But again, the committee that I mentioned before that Cindy is on, one of the things that they're working on is what expectations and how RPT reviews would and should be done, not only 1, 2, 3, 4 years post-pandemic, but into the future. So, but what we have done so far this year in terms of giving guidance on expectations, we did ask chairs and directors not to rank or rate or compare or evaluate in a good, better, best kind of way faculty performance in their 2020 annual reviews. And hopefully you all got a memo or an email from me, I don't know, a month ago or 3 weeks ago to that effect. We just didn't think that comparisons or ranking this year was appropriate for, I think, obvious reasons. And so also what this committee is talking about and what we're kind of moving toward, and what even Phil and I and leadership in the college have been talking about for RPT in 21-22 is to move toward a trajectory-based consideration. So, this person was doing great until the pandemic, and then the world blew up on us, and, are we supposed to now say, oh no, you should have done this or that or the other thing? I don't think so. So that's going to be, that's going to be our approach at least at the college level next year. And I know from talking with Suzanne Lang that the provost also supports a trajectory-based approach, at least in the next couple of years, because she's well aware of the danger of losing talent at MSU if we just sort of cover our ears and nose and eye and say, no, the pandemic didn't happen. Our expectations are what they always were. Our metrics are always what they were. Well, no. And then the other thing we're talking about at the college level is moving toward a holistic evaluation approach, not just in post-pandemic, but for more and for the future. And we're just kind of learning about this, and there is a literature on holistic evaluation, even at the faculty level. And so Julie Labarkin, who's a faculty member in Earth and Environmental Sciences, she has been, she knows more than anybody I know about this. And so she's been helping us think through what would a holistic evaluation look like. So the committee is going to be continuing that work next academic year. And so that's, I just let you know that is kind of a work in progress, but something I think will not only address pandemic, but it will also address things like differential service burden placed on women faculty and faculty of color, and look more at what it does is take a look at the university values and say, how does this person's contribution in any area, whether it's research, teaching, or service, and you know, how do they bring, how does that person, oh, what's the word I'm looking for, Cindy? Demonstrate those university values. And so it's a real interesting way of thinking about things, very different from, you know, the three buckets we usually think of, research, and that's the one that's given most weight. And then all the other stuff is like, well, that's fine too, but we don't care about that so much. So it's really for me, a whole different way of looking at things. And I'm excited to see where we end up with there. Anyway, I didn't mean to take up the last 4 minutes with a soliloquy. So I will stop. And I think this is the last slide. Yes. So are there any additional questions or anything you want to talk about? And if people have to leave, I totally understand that. We are recording the meeting, so if people need to leave, that's fine. So I saw Willie unmute first, and then I see Ingo's hand up.
Okay, question is, there is a DEI statement coming. Is there any guideline about that? Yeah,
that is in a draft. Was it in the draft, or was, yeah, that was in the memo that the provost sent around. What was that? And yeah, you know, thank you for bringing that up. I don't know that that is policy at this point, but yeah, I do remember her saying that. Let me check on that. Yeah, we're having this discussion at the college level about requiring DEI statements for, let's say, well, for our own, you know, RPT considerations, but also from, you know, applicants for in job searches. And I think it's, you know, a good idea. The problem I have with it is it's not clear to me that review bodies know how to interpret those or evaluate those. And so, yeah, we'll be discussing that very thing with Amber. In fact, we were supposed to discuss it at a meeting today and we ran out of time, but that's, yeah. So stay tuned on that one too. Ingo.
Yeah, going back to the COVID impact statement. So if one decides not to take the COVID extension, would it be seen contradictory then to still add a COVID impact statement? Because I think both can be true, right? So you're impacted by the pandemic, but still decide to not take the extension for example, for reasons that Amy brought up, like it might be financially very burdensome to take an extra year.
Yeah, I don't, that's a good question, but.
Because someone could see that as kind of, you're telling me you don't need it, but on the other hand, you're telling me you're impacted. So,
yeah, but you don't need it, not because you don't feel like you're ready. Yeah, I see the dilemma. I don't know. I think there might be ways of talking about it in a both and kind of way. I don't know. Cindy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, okay, Ingo, you're a high performer, right? And yes, you were impacted, but you're so above the bar, right, that you still feel ready, despite this impact. I think it's a both and. You can absolutely do it.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see everyone again. And I see there's some things in the chat. The chat's being saved too, so I'll get that. Oh yeah, I see some people had to leave already. So, okay. Any other questions, comments? If you don't have them now and think of them tomorrow or the next day or the day after that, just, yeah, email Cindy or me, either one, and we'll try to get answers.
Yes, absolutely. And I put a question out already, Cheryl, in regard to Ingo's first question, because we haven't asked specifically that question. So you'll see an email.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we'll get the answered, and probably something that it might be a good idea is actually for the college to also have their own FAQ. But I don't know if it's you know, totally redundant with the university FAQs, that's not useful, but I don't know. We can think about that, but of course, having faculty input would be great.
Well, thanks again, everyone, for attending today. We'll be in touch with how you can access this recording and then others as well. And yeah, hope everyone has a good evening, and we'll see you whenever the next time is.
Yeah, so glad you were able to attend. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Please, please, please. That's what we're here for. All right, be well.
Okay, bye, everyone.